Welcome back for our second deep dive of What About the Future? So glad you can join us again as we unpack another fascinating glimpse into what might be just around the corner.
Always a pleasure to be here.
This time, we're diving into something honestly equally mind-bending, the Internet of Senses. You sent over some seriously interesting stuff, an Ericsson report, a blog post, a podcast episode, even a tech explainer.
Tried to cover all the bases.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, I'm already kind of wondering, how much of this is science fiction versus reality?
Right. That's the fun part, though, isn't it? Figuring out where that line
Oh,
blurs.
totally. So, okay, first things first. What exactly are we talking about when we say Internet of Senses?
Hmm.
It sounds kind of like straight out of a cyberpunk novel.
It does, doesn't it? But the core idea is surprisingly straightforward. Taking the digital world beyond screens and sound and engaging all five senses. Yeah, think about it. You wouldn't only see and hear online, but also touch, taste, and smell things digitally.
Okay, I can kind of grasp the seeing and hearing part. We've already got VR and amazing audio. But how on earth do you digitally replicate taste or smell?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The podcast episode we have actually talks about a prototype device, uses electrical stimulation on your tongue to mimic taste.
So theoretically, like, I could be watching a cooking show and actually get a sample taste of the dish being prepared.
Exactly.
Well, hold on. So I'm tasting something that doesn't actually exist.
Right.
My brain's being tricked into thinking there's food in my mouth.
Exactly. And it's not just taste either. The Ericsson report mentions companies are working on olfactory interfaces, devices that release controlled scents,
To do what?
which could be used for everything from recreating the smell of a forest in, say, a VR experience to letting you, smell test perfumes before buying them online.
That's wild, but also kind of unsettling, right?
Oh, yeah.
What happens when companies can directly target our senses with ads?
Mm.
Could we even tell the difference between a real smell and a digital one?
It's a huge question. And honestly, the sources don't really have a clear answer for yet, but it raises some pretty significant ethical concerns, especially around privacy and manipulation.
Right.
Well, if companies can access our sensory data, they could potentially exploit our desires, our vulnerabilities even, in ways we haven't even imagined yet.
Okay, before we go full-on dystopian thriller here,
Right.
let's back up a bit and talk about the tech itself. The blog post and the Techopedia article both mention a whole alphabet soup of technologies involved. We've got AI, VR, AR, the existing Internet of Things.
Yeah.
How do they all fit together to make the Internet of Senses possible?
Well, think of it like building a house. The foundation is the existing internet infrastructure, all those networks and connections. Then you have like the framing provided by AI, VR, and AR, which create the digital environments and experiences. But to actually engage the senses, you need specialized tools. Things like haptic feedback for touch, olfactory interfaces for smell, gustatory simulation for taste, and even neural interfaces for direct brain-computer interaction.
So wait, neural interfaces,
Yeah.
as in like plugging our brains directly into the internet?
Yeah.
That's a whole other level of wow, and not necessarily in a good way.
I know, right? It is a bit sci-fi, but researchers are actually working on it. The idea is that neural interfaces could bypass the need for these external devices
Okay.
and allow us to experience the digital world directly through our minds. Think about controlling your smart home with your thoughts or feeling a virtual hug from a loved one across the world.
Okay, that last one actually sounds kind of sweet,
Right.
but also incredibly invasive.
Right.
I mean, if the internet can access our thoughts and feelings, what's to stop it from, like, manipulating them?
It's definitely a double-edged sword, and one that highlights the importance of, ethical guidelines and responsible development. We need to be incredibly careful about giving the internet access to our inner world, especially when the technology is still so new and unpredictable.
Yeah, totally agree. So we've got this incredibly powerful set of technologies that could potentially revolutionize how we interact with the digital world.
Uh-huh.
But it also seems like there's a real danger of those technologies being used in ways that are harmful, unethical, even downright scary.
Exactly. The Internet of Senses presents both incredible opportunities and unprecedented risks.
And it's up to us as a society to make sure we develop and use it responsibly.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's delve into those opportunities for a moment. The sources mention all sorts of amazing possibilities, from revolutionizing entertainment and education to transforming healthcare and even helping people with disabilities.
Absolutely. Just imagine a world where you can learn about history by actually experiencing ancient Rome in VR,
Yeah.
complete with sights, sounds, and even smells. Or a world where surgeons can practice complex procedures on virtual patients, honing their skills without any risk to real people. The potential is truly transformative.
Okay, those are some seriously compelling examples, but honestly, I'm still struggling to reconcile the potential benefits with the potential risks. It's like we're standing at a crossroads,
Yeah.
with one path leading to a utopian future and the other leading to a dystopian nightmare.
Wow, that's a powerful image, and it speaks to the choices we face as we move forward with this technology.
So how do we ensure we're on the right path? What steps can we take to harness the power of the Internet of Senses while also safeguarding ourselves from its potential dangers?
Well, I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
The more we understand about the iOS, its potential benefits and the risks, the better equipped we'll be to make, informed decisions about its development and use.
Knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. We need to educate ourselves, engage in critical thinking, and demand transparency from the companies and institutions developing these technologies.
So it's not just about the tech itself, but also about the social and ethical frameworks we build around it.
Absolutely. We need to establish clear guidelines for data privacy, security, and ethical use. We need to have open and honest conversations about the potential consequences of the iOS, both positive and negative.
And we need to be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah.
We can't just wait for problems to arise before we start addressing them.
I couldn't agree more. The future of the Internet of Senses, it's still being written, and we all have a role to play in shaping that future.
Well said. So let's delve deeper into some of these specific concerns and opportunities, starting with the potential impact on entertainment and gaming. After all, that's where a lot of this technology is being pioneered, right?
Sounds like a plan.
Buckle up. Things are about to get even more immersive.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready for the ride.
Me too. So, gaming. I mean, it's already a multi-billion-dollar industry.
It is.
And the iOS, it could take it to a whole new level of, immersion and engagement.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine what that even looks like. Beyond, better graphics and sound, what could the iOS actually add to the gaming experience?
Well, think about feeling the impact of every hit, like in a fighting game, through haptic feedback, or smelling the gunpowder after firing, a virtual weapon.
Okay.
Imagine exploring, I don't know, a fantasy world, and actually feeling the wind on your face, or the heat of the sun on your skin.
Okay, now that's something I could get behind. It'd be like stepping inside the game world instead of just watching it on a screen.
Exactly. And it's not just about, intensifying existing experiences either.
Right.
The iOS could create entirely new genres of games, ones that rely on our senses in ways we haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah, the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing. But let's not forget about the potential downsides, right?
Oh, for sure.
We already have concerns about video game addiction, violence, the blurring of lines between reality and fantasy. Could the iOS, could it make those problems even worse?
It's definitely a valid concern. If we're not careful, the iOS could create, even more immersive and addictive experiences,
Right.
making it harder for people to distinguish between the virtual and the real.
And what about the ethical implications of using our senses to manipulate players? Could game developers use the iOS to exploit, our emotions or influence our behavior in ways we're not even aware of?
It's a slippery slope for sure. We need to be incredibly cautious about how we design and implement these technologies, ensuring that, they're used to enhance our experiences, not exploit them.
So it sounds like a balancing act. We need to find a way to harness the incredible potential of the iOS for entertainment,
Yeah,
while also safeguarding against its potential dangers.
absolutely. It's a challenge, but I believe it's one we can overcome if we approach it thoughtfully and responsibly.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the potential impact of the iOS on education. I've always been a hands-on learner, so the idea of experiencing historical events or, scientific concepts through my senses, it really appeals to me.
I can see why. Imagine taking a virtual field trip to, I don't know, ancient Egypt. Not just seeing the pyramids,
Right.
but feeling the sand beneath your feet and smelling the incense burning in the temples. or dissecting a virtual frog in biology class, experiencing the textures and even the smells.
That's a far cry from the dry textbooks and lectures I remember from school.
Right.
Sounds like the iOS could make learning so much more engaging and effective.
Exactly. It could transform education from a passive process of, absorbing information to an active process of exploration and discovery.
And what about students with disabilities?
Oh, good point.
Could the iOS help level the playing field, making education more accessible and inclusive?
Absolutely. For example, students with visual impairments could use haptic feedback devices to feel diagrams and models. Students with hearing impairments could experience music through vibrations. The possibilities are really exciting.
It sounds like the iOS could revolutionize education, opening up a world of learning opportunities for everyone.
It has that potential, but of course, there are challenges to consider.
Yeah.
We need to, ensure that iOS-based education is accessible to all students, regardless of their socioeconomic background or location. We also need to address concerns about privacy and data security, especially when dealing with sensitive information about children.
Yeah, those are crucial points. But overall, it seems like the potential benefits of the iOS for education are pretty compelling.
I agree. It's a field that's ripe for innovation, and I'm excited to see how it evolves in the coming years.
Now let's talk about the potential impact of the iOS on healthcare. I've read about some fascinating applications, from virtual reality therapy to remote surgery.
Yeah, the healthcare industry is already embracing the iOS in some incredible ways. Imagine doctors being able to diagnose patients remotely.
Yeah.
Using sensors and haptic feedback to examine them as if they were in the same room.
That could be a game changer for people in rural areas or developing countries
Right.
who lack access to specialized medical care.
Exactly. And think about the potential for personalized medicine.
Yeah.
Doctors could use the iOS to create virtual simulations of a patient's body, allowing them to test different treatment options, predict outcomes with greater accuracy.
And what about the potential for the iOS to help people with disabilities? We touched on this earlier in the context of education,
Yeah.
but it seems like there are even more possibilities in healthcare.
Absolutely. Imagine prosthetic limbs that can provide, sensory feedback, allowing amputees to feel the world around them.
Wow.
Or imagine virtual reality therapy for people with PTSD, allowing them to confront their trauma in a safe and controlled environment.
The potential is really remarkable. But as with any new technology, there are risks to consider.
Oh, of course.
What about the potential for hacking
Yeah.
or data breaches?
Right.
Could someone manipulate medical devices or steal sensitive patient information?
Security is paramount in any healthcare application. We need to ensure that, iOS devices and networks are designed with robust security measures to protect patient privacy and safety.
And what about the potential for bias in AI-powered healthcare systems? Could algorithms, inadvertently discriminate against certain groups of people?
That's a very real concern. We need to be incredibly careful about how we design and train these algorithms, ensuring that, they're fair and equitable for all patients.
So it sounds like we need to approach the iOS in healthcare with a healthy dose of caution, balancing its incredible potential with the need for responsible development and ethical guidelines.
I couldn't agree more. The iOS has the power to revolutionize healthcare, but we need to proceed thoughtfully and ensure that it's used to improve lives, not endanger them.
Now let's talk about another area where the iOS could have a major impact. The world of work. Remote work has already become, increasingly common, but the iOS could take it to a whole new level.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine attending a virtual meeting where you can not only see and hear your colleagues, but also feel their presence through haptic feedback technology.
Okay.
You could shake hands, give a virtual high five, even feel a pat on the back.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like being in the same room together, even if you're miles apart.
I like it.
That would certainly make remote work feel less isolating.
Yeah.
And it could also lead to more productive and collaborative meetings as people feel more connected to each other.
Exactly. And it's not just about meetings either. The iOS could transform the way we work in countless other ways. Imagine architects using virtual reality to design buildings, feeling the textures of different materials, experiencing the flow of space firsthand.
Or imagine surgeons using virtual reality to plan and practice, complex procedures.
Right.
honing their skills without any risk to real patients.
The possibilities are endless, but as with any new technology, there are challenges to consider.
Of course.
We need to ensure that the iOS is used to create jobs, not destroy them.
Yeah.
We also need to address concerns about privacy and surveillance, especially, in the workplace.
Yeah, those are important points. But overall, it seems like the iOS has the potential to revolutionize the way we work,
Yeah,
making it more efficient, collaborative, and accessible.
I agree. It's an exciting time to be watching this technology evolve.
Yeah.
Who knows what incredible innovations we'll see in the coming years.
I'm ready for the ride. But before we get too carried away with all the amazing possibilities, let's take a step back and consider some of the broader societal and ethical implications of the iOS.
Okay.
We've touched on some of these issues already, but I think it's worth delving deeper.
Yeah, you're right. The iOS, it raises some profound questions about the future of humanity. Like, what does it mean to be human in an increasingly digital world? What are the limits of our perception? How do we ensure that technology serves us, not the other way around?
These are big questions.
They are.
And I don't think there are any easy answers.
I agree, but it's crucial that we engage in these conversations, that we think critically about the implications of the iOS and work together to shape its development in a way that benefits humanity as a whole.
Well said. So, as we conclude this deep dive into the world of the Internet of Senses, I'm left with a mix of excitement and apprehension. It's a technology with incredible potential, but also one that comes with significant risks. It's up to us to ensure that we use it wisely for the betterment of ourselves and our world.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap our heads around, that's for sure.
It is.
But I think the key takeaway is that the Internet of Senses isn't just some far-off futuristic concept.
Right.
It's already happening.
It is.
And it's moving fast.
It is. And that's why these conversations are so important. We need to be, actively shaping the development of this technology, not just reacting to it after the fact.
So let's talk solutions. We've discussed the potential risks, privacy violations, manipulations, sensory overload, the works. But what can we actually do to mitigate those risks and ensure the iOS is used ethically and responsibly?
Well, one crucial step is to foster what I call sensory literacy.
Sensory literacy.
Yeah, just like, we teach kids to be critical of the information they see on TV or online. We need to teach them and ourselves to be critical of the sensory information we're bombarded with in the iOS world.
So, like, being aware of how our senses can be manipulated, questioning the authenticity of digital experiences, setting boundaries for how much sensory input we allow into our lives.
Exactly. It's about being mindful and intentional about our sensory experiences, both online and offline.
That makes sense. But individual awareness can only go so far, right?
Yeah.
Don't we also need systemic safeguards, like regulations and ethical guidelines for companies developing these technologies?
Absolutely. We need strong data privacy laws that specifically address sensory data.
Right.
We need to hold companies accountable for creating, iOS experiences that are safe, transparent, and non-manipulative.
And maybe even some kind of nutritional label for digital experiences.
Sorry.
So consumers can make informed choices about what they're consuming, like, warning, this VR game contains high levels of adrenaline and may be addictive.
I love that idea. Transparency and consumer empowerment are key.
Okay, so we've got sensory literacy, regulations, ethical design principles. Anything else we should be thinking about?
I think it's also crucial to foster a culture of open dialogue and debate around the iOS.
Okay.
We need to be having these conversations in our schools, our communities, our governments to figure out what kind of future we want to create with this technology.
Totally agree. It's not just about the tech itself, but about the values and principles we bring to it.
Exactly. The iOS has the potential to be an incredible tool for connection, creativity, understanding, but it also has the potential to be misused, abused.
It's like any powerful tool.
Right.
It can be used for good or for ill.
Exactly. And it's up to us to ensure that it's used for good.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of the Internet of Senses, I'm feeling a renewed sense of of responsibility.
Yeah.
It's not just about passively observing these technological advancements. It's about actively shaping them to create a future that we can all feel good about, literally.
Couldn't agree more. It's an exciting, daunting, and ultimately hopeful time. And I for one, am eager to see what we make of it.
Me too. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and thanks to all of you for listening.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive into what about the future.
Mm.
Until then, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those senses sharp.